Hey guys, I am Bianca Octavia and welcome back to another craft break. I love crafting with you guys every Wednesday, and as always, we will be doing a fun Mod Podge project. If you didn't see the picture beforehand, this is what we will be making. And this gnome is actually a wine bottle cover. So if I take this off, you can see our wine bottle underneath. So this is just an easy and festive holiday project that you can make for someone as a gift, or if you've been invited over to a Christmas party. I think that this is a really cute way to bring your bottle over. So, like I said, this is a Mod Podge project. So for this project, you will be using Mod Podge. Today I am going to be using the fabric formula, and then I will also be using some fabric, of course. So we'll grab that fabric bottle and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But you're gonna also need some fabric, of course. And then this is a mop. And I will tell you what we are gonna be using this mop for in just a few minutes. You might already have an idea of what. You're also gonna need a wooden bead, some scissors, and of course, a wine bottle. All right, so we will go ahead and we will jump right into this project. And the first thing that we are going to start with is our hat. But before we get started, this is what the fabric Mod Podge bottle looks like. If you need to go and grab some. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and get started. So we're gonna start this project by making our gnome's hat. So I have some fabric here in front of me. I'm actually gonna use two different fabrics for this project, and I'll explain why in just a few minutes. So you're gonna lay out your fabric, and then you are going to fold it into a triangle. So I'm going to show you that fold one more time just so you can get that at home the right way. So I have it laid out just like this, and then I'm going to fold it into a triangle like this. And you do want to start with your fabric inside out so that you see the backing of it. So I'm going to flip it over, make sure it is lined up correctly, and then I'm going to cut across like this. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and set our fabric off to the side. And now we have our gnome hat, and we are going to use some Mod Podge fabric to hold it together. So this is an easy no-sew project. I actually do not know how to sew, so I really appreciate things like this that make it easier for people like me. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush into the Mod Podge here. And actually, let's open this up. Actually, I'm going to flip this over. And we are going to paint the Mod Podge onto the edge of our fabric. And we only need to do one side. We don't need to put any of our Mod Podge on both edges. And once we get this covered, we are going to close the hat up. Okay. So that should be enough. I'm going to close it up. And like I said, you want your fabric to be inside out, because once this dries, we are going to flip it over, and we want that seam to be seamless. So, fabric inside out, guys. And when we do pull this out, that seam will be perfect. We can kind of already see it here. But we're gonna let this dry for a few minutes. In the meantime, we are going to cut another strip of fabric. And this is going to be the liner for our hat. And once we get a few more steps in, I'll show you what we mean and how it'll all come together. But you're going to start with cutting a medium-sized strip. And you do want to make sure that the strip wraps around your hat. So when you cut your strip, you do want to make sure that it is able to reach around the entire bottom part of the hat. So I've gone ahead and pre-cut this one. And then we're going to take some more of our Mod Podge and we're going to paint it on the edges just like we did with the hat a minute ago. And we're going to fold these edges over. And the reason I'm doing this is so that it looks nice and neat. Since we are not sewing, we are using our Mod Podge fabric to create a seamless look. And no one will ever know that we did not use a sewing machine. So I'm going to fold this over. And this dries pretty quickly. I'm not really using a ruler or anything here. This is not one of those projects. You can just kind of eyeball it. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and we're going to do the other side as well. Okay. Same thing, and you don't even need a lot, just a little bit. All right, so we're going to fold this edge over. And if you want to at home, it's not really necessary, but if you really want your creases to be nice and sharp, once this is dry, you can kind of go over it with an iron. Not necessary, just optional. So once you finish, your strip should look something like this. I'm going to go ahead and set this off to the side and let it dry. And we'll come back to it. So while that is drying, we're going to bring our hat back in. And as I mentioned earlier, we are actually going to be using a mop to create our gnome's beard. And you can pick this up at the dollar store. I think this was $1.25. And if you don't have a mop or you can't get access to a mop, you can also use yarn for this as well. So I've already gone ahead and cut some of it off. And we have that here. So we are going to use our Mod Podge fabric again, right around the bottom edge of our hat. You only need to do one side unless you want your gnome to have a beard and long hair in the back. But we're just going to do a beard today. So for this part, I am going to use a generous amount of our Mod Podge because the string from the mop is a little bit heavier and we want that to stay on. So I'm putting a good layer on there. And then all you do is grab the strings from your mop and line them up. And you use as much as you want, depending on how full you would like for your beard to be. And then once this is dried, you can go around it and cut it to whatever length it needs to be, depending on how big or small your wine bottle is. And we'll get to that part as well in just a few minutes here. So let's cut a few more strings. Let's see, might have to cut a few more to fill it in. So let's cut off maybe about 4 more, 4 or 5 more. All right. And like I said, if you can't find a mop, or you don't already have one that you want to use, I'm assuming you might not want to use a mop that you've already used. It'd probably be a little dirty, but you can use yarn for this as well. I chose to go with the mop because I really like the braided look on the string. Yarn is a little more puffy. It's not as nice and neat as the string from the mop, but it's totally up to you. Either way, your project will turn out looking great. All right, so once you have all of your strings laid, you're gonna dip your paintbrush back in the fabric Mod Podge again, and you're gonna go over your strings with a final layer. So make sure you use a good amount. I would suggest going heavy with the Mod Podge, only for this part. Again, like I said, the strings do have a little bit of weight on them, and we are not using a sewing machine, so we want to make sure that they stay on. So this is what it should look like once you finish adding on all of the strings from your mop. You're going to go ahead and you're going to set your gnome hat off to the side and let it dry. So we're going to go ahead and move this one out of the way. Once it is totally dried, it should look something like this. So once it's totally dry, you can go ahead and you can flip your hat right side out, and the strings from your mop should be totally dry. So as you can see, they are not coming off here. I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over, and that strip that we cut earlier is gonna go around the rim of our hat to create that seamless look. So you can leave it like this, but just to make it look a little bit more finished and a little more store-bought, that is what this strip is for. So I'm going to grab this wine bottle, and I'm going to set it on top. And then I'm going to take our strip, and I'm going to wrap it around the bottle. I'm going to turn this towards you guys. Actually, I'm going to come to the side a little bit, and I'm going to use our Mod Podge again to hold the two ends of the strips together. You can go around the entire rim of the hat, but it's not really necessary. Just doing the two ends should be sufficient. You just want to make sure that you have it held together tightly. So just make sure you pull on it pretty tightly. We'll add a little bit more for some extra security. All right. And we will give this a few minutes to dry, and we'll come back to it. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'll lay it down so you guys can see it from this view. And as you can see, I've actually already gone ahead and cut my gnome's beard. You can leave it as is. Like I said, depending on the size of your wine bottle, you can leave them as they were when you put them on. But there is another part to this project where I think you might want to cut your beard so that you can see the other part of it. So I went ahead and cut mine kind of in an angle. So I'm going to take this hat off, and we're going to set this to the side and let it dry. And then we are going to grab another piece of fabric. And like I said earlier, I'm using two different fabric patterns because this is actually going to be the gnome's, let's call it his coat. So we just made the gnome's hat. This is going to be the gnome's coat. And the reason I wanted to use a different pattern is because if I were to use the same pattern, you wouldn't really be able to notice or be able to tell the difference between the hat and the actual coat. So I wanted you to be able to tell the difference from one another. So that's why I chose a different pattern. So we are going to start by first measuring out the fabric to match the size of your bottle. So you're just going to cut a piece and you're going to roll your bottle. And then you're gonna cut until you get the size that you need. And I would say maybe cut an extra 1 to 2 inches just in case, because we do need to fold these ends in, so that will shorten it. But also, you just kind of want to give yourself a little bit of extra space just in case you make any mistakes. So once you have your fabric cut, you're going to use your Mod Podge again to go around all 4 edges, and you're going to fold them over just like we did with the hat and with the strip. And this is to create that seamless look, to make it look like we sewed this, but we actually are not. And you're just going to fold it over. We're going to do that on the other side, and then we're going to repeat this same step for the other 2 edges of our fabric. And this is a really fun project, really easy to do, and actually kind of quick as well. I think this is a project that can definitely be done in an hour or less. Making it definitely should only take you about 30 minutes, but with dry time, probably right at an hour or under an hour. Okay. So we will finish these 2 edges, and we are coming up to the end here. Do we have anyone watching today that is not in Atlanta?
Yeah, do let us know where you're watching from, guys. We always love to hear where everybody is viewing. Bianca, we have lots of people saying that this is very cute.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you guys. I know people love gnomes, and people also love wine. So these are 2 things that you can put together, and everybody will love them.
It's a great combo.
And I think when you make this at home, you know, using your own patterns, I think it's just a really fun project. Even outside of the holidays, I think gnomes are year-round. But during the holiday season, I think it's really fun to craft gnomes because you can make them look like Santa Claus or even like an elf. And I think the really fun part is picking out all of the different patterns and fabric that you use for this. All right, so I am folding over our final edge. Alrighty. And then what you want to do is grab your wine bottle once again. I'm going to lay this down. We're going to lay our wine bottle on top of this, and we're basically using our wine bottle as a mold here. So, yep, that fits perfectly. So I'm going to use the Mod Podge again. Let's actually move this out of the way. I just wanted to make sure that that fit the size of our wine bottle. We're going to paint 1 edge. You don't need to paint 2, and we're going to close this up. So although this is the coat for our gnome, it's actually a sleeve. So we're going to close up the sleeve for our wine bottle.
Bianca, we have viewers from Maryland, from Texas, who have stopped in to say hello and where they're watching from. Crafting with Mimi says, I am so excited because I already have all the supplies,
Yay!
including an empty wine bottle. So that's
I think
excellent.
we all have some empty wine bottles.
And Monica says it'd be cute as a Valentine or Easter gnome too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
This is definitely a fun project for any holiday. Like I said, I think it just all depends on what fabric you use, what pattern you use. All right, and a fun fact, I don't know who's watching from Maryland, but that's actually where I was born.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe you were neighbors with these people at one point. We also have viewers from Michigan and Alberta, Canada.
Hey guys, Alberta, Canada, wow. Okay, so I have closed up the sleeve here. And the last step for this project, actually not the last step, the second to the last step for this project is to grab some buttons. And you can use your fabric Mod Podge once again to glue these onto the front of your sleeve. So you just apply some to the back of your buttons and line them up on the front of your sleeve. And by the front, of course, I mean not the back where we have closed up our sleeve. You want to do it on the front. Let that dry for a few minutes, and when it is done, it should come out like this. So our buttons are good and on here, and we are going to go ahead and assemble our gnome. So I will start by first sliding our wine bottle into the sleeve here. So let's put it down, slide that right on there. And this honestly, actually, if you're giving this as a gift, this is a cute way to wrap the gift. Throw a gift tag on there. And I think whoever receives it will be really appreciative and very surprised. And you don't even have to tell them it's handmade, unless you want them to know you made it with love. All right. So we have our sleeve on here. Now we're gonna go ahead and throw on our hat. So let's grab that again. So this is our hat. And now you can kind of see what I meant earlier by using two different patterns. It just makes it easier for you to be able to tell the difference between the hat and the sleeve itself. But it's definitely based on your preference. So let's sit this up for just a second here. Alrighty. And the last step for this project is to glue on, let's straighten up our hat a little bit, is to glue on the gnome's nose. And you can use a yarn ball or you can use a wooden bead like I have here. This bead actually has two holes in it. So I'm going to make sure that the hole is facing down so that you don't see it on the front of his face. So for this part, I am going to use some hot glue just because the wooden bead is a lot heavier. So stay in place, gnome. Okay. So I'm going to add a little bit to the back of it. Be careful with your hot glue. If you are a crafter, you're probably immune to hot glue heat now, but be careful. And we're just going to add that right onto the front here. And we are done with our gnome. So this is with our red plaid pattern. I'm going to go ahead and set this one off to the side, and I'm going to show our fully finished and dried gnome, which is in a different pattern, and that is in black and white. So this is just another pattern that you can use. So this is just some additional inspiration. But this is a really quick, really simple, really easy project. Like I said, I think if you go over to a party with this, everyone will be really surprised, especially when you tell them that you made it by hand. I think this is definitely a conversation piece. And even if you don't want to give this as a gift, I think this is just a great way to use your wine bottles this holiday season, like the empty ones. Like, they don't even, like, no one even has to know that it's a wine bottle. You can set these on top of your cabinets, and it just looks like a bunch of different gnomes. So that is our project from today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Again, I will show you the bottle for the fabric Mod Podge, just so you know what it looks like when you go to pick it up. This is what it looks like. We do have another blue formula, so just make sure that, well, we have another bottle of Mod Podge that has a blue label, so just make sure that you are picking up the one that says fabric. And that is our project for today. If you guys make this at home, please use hashtag plaidcraft so that we can see it and so that we can give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next